Avowed is a game that I'm surprised I'm enjoying as much as I am. These are just my thoughts on Avowed after around 10 hours of playing. So I've never been a big Obsidian or Bethesda fan when it comes to like their RPGs. Everybody says Skyrim is one of the best games ever, and I personally hated it and stopped playing very quickly. Fallout I can stand more, but I don't think I've ever beaten one. But there's something about Avowed that for me just works. And I kind of want to explore why it kind of works for me. The biggest thing for me is the combat. I decided to go for an arcane archer type of archetype at the beginning of the game. Main weapons for me have been bow, wand or pistol, and spellbook. I've never been a huge fan of first-person melee combat, so I've been sticking with range, and I really enjoy it. With the bow, it's all about precision and weak point hits. Where you do the most damage is from hitting headshots, if that's the thing's weak point, which most things I've run into, it is. With the wand, it feels like it's a lot of spamming small attacks, but because you can pair it with the spellbook and use the 4 spells in a spellbook to do a good burst of damage, the spamming isn't so bad, and the spells look really good. The particle effects from them are really good, and I love how each feels really different from the animations to how it's used. And I do kind of like how they scale their combat, where you have to upgrade weapons to match enemy strength instead of it just being a grind out levels type of thing. Sure, you still have to grind out the resources to upgrade the weapons, but it's a lot easier to just stick with a couple of weapons and just keep going with them and upgrade them instead of, upgrading everything. I just really like the game's combat, and I think it's the most fun part of Avowed. Right behind it, though, is actually the game's exploration. I'm really glad that Avowed went with a semi-open world game compared to like their last couple of games where it feels like it is fully open world. Because when it comes to exploration, my problem with like open world games is the open world size. Like from the truly open world games like Skyrim, the Fallout series, and like Dragon's Dogma 2 from last year, they have such large maps that to explore them can get kind of overwhelming. And like, I'm not a huge fan of that. Even though with certain games that in the open world genre, like Days Gone, I do really like. But Avowed kind of gets around this by having areas that feel pretty big to explore, but not so large that it's going to take you, 200 hours to explore a map. The areas feel small enough that you can run from one side to the other just going straight in like maybe 10 minutes or less, but they're filled with enough secrets and different paths that it makes exploring the map fun and rewarding. If I were to compare Avowed to another game in terms of like map style, I would say it's really close to Metro Exodus, but in a fantasy RPG form. The areas are big and packed with things to do and secrets to find and explore, but they're not ginormous. They're a manageable size that are fun to run around a bit aimlessly or with a map marker in mind. I would say that the combat and the exploration are kind of the two top things about Avowed that I really like. And I think it's something that Avowed does really well and does right. But I think they missed the marks on some of the big RPG things. And that's with the characters. Before I go and, actually talk about them, let me show you a scene. So right before this, I've just forgiven an assassin that tried to take my life, or that did take my life, but then I got resurrected by the gods, and now I'm back hunting them down. And I decided that I would forgive them because they are kind of like regretting it and stuff like that. And I thought it was interesting. And I wanted to see that if I forgive him and his compatriots, if they would show up later to either try again or assist me at some point in the story.
What of these rebels? The streets are full of rumors, but you... What? You're damn right. We needed to answer this challenge with blood. Don't you see what this... Thanks to you, these rebels will continue to undermine our work in the Living Lands. Worse still, now everyone knows our flank is exposed.
I have scoured this island and faced the truths from which you cower. The Living Lands is on the brink of total collapse, and you You have ignored the discontent in your own city. Now, the envoy's killer roams free, unpunished, spreading word of our ineptitude.
The blame is mine, and mine alone.
Awfully generous for the ambassador to take the fall like that. I wonder when this will come back to bite us.
And right there is what I mean by missed the mark. In the first conversation, he says that my character is taking all the blame for the assassin not being dead when the Inquisitor shows up and questions about it. But in the next, in like the actual conversation with the Inquisitor, he takes the blame. I'm like, why is he... You just said one thing, but then you do another, like, and you don't give an explanation after it of, you know, I thought it would be more of a hassle if you took the blame, so I decided to take the blame. It's like, no, it feels like these characters have short-term memory loss. Like, the writing just doesn't make sense sometimes in Avowed. Characters go from annoyed or mad or happy about a decision you make, and then right back to neutral after the conversation is over. It is a really weird kind of writing. Like, character views kind of resetting to default just makes the characters and the writing feel unfinished and just kind of worse than it could be. Like, maybe they didn't have time to put in a morality system or put in, like, a mechanic for the characters to, you know, have their own judgment of you. I don't know. It doesn't feel like these characters are, you know, actual people that you're talking to. It feels like they're just, you know, there, and they, you know, don't remember what you just said. It is so weird, and I just don't like it. But Avowed lands in a weird place for me, because I love the game's mechanics with combat and exploration, but I don't like the way the characters are written. I think the story's decent, but I don't like the way the characters are written. And usually something like this would land on my list kind of low, because it's an RPG, and one of the most important things is the story. But because I'm really enjoying the game's mechanics, I'm gonna put the game on the lower side of my I love it category. Because I am really enjoying those mechanics, and I kind of want to play more. Sure, granted, it's landing there after about 10 hours of gameplay and just completing the first area, so maybe take my thoughts with a grain of salt. But that's currently what I think of Avowed. If you enjoyed the video, please do all the algorithm stuff, like liking the video and subscribing. If you want to support the channel a tiny bit more, Patreon's down in the description. But most importantly, I hope you have a royal day or night, and I'll talk to you later.